Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for being part of the virtual festival. I really enjoyed this project, I have to tell you. And it was entertaining. It kind of made you think. And then there were some takeaways of like, what kind of job would I do that kind of compromised my moral compass a bit. But I would kind of love to hear about your process. Where did the idea come from? How did you develop it? Wendy, would you like to take that one?
So Mike and I created this project. I'm gonna actually have him talk a little bit about where the idea came from, but it's something that we've been working on for a number of years. It's been written and rewritten, and then we had an opportunity to actually produce the pilot by getting some funding, and so it kind of is, that's what we have now. But I'll let Mike kind of talk about the origin of the project.
A number of years before that, I went to work at a family law firm as a paralegal. And it was obvious within a couple of weeks that the family law system was just catastrophically broken. And I said, wow, I'd love to satirize this someday. And then also obvious that between the clients and the opposing clients and the attorneys and opposing attorneys, there were a lot of colorful people all in conflict with each other or at cross purposes with each other. And it just gave rise to so much comedy and tragedy in the same proportion that I thought I have to make this into something someday.
Were the characters based on anybody that you encountered at that job?
No, just only in the loosest of ways.
Good. I'm glad to know there's not like an Archie or a Leonard necessarily floating around out there.
Out there in the world.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are actually.
Right?
They're probably worse in reality than they are in the script.
Quite possibly. I don't even want to think about it. So how long did it take for you to go from page to screen?
Oh, we wrote it a few years ago, and then just kind of we're looking for the opportunity to make it. It's a little challenging in that it has so many characters. It also takes place entirely in one day. So as you guys just watched, it's, you know, the job interview. So it's one character kind of starting out this journey. And for us, we saw the parallels between this and the Divine Comedy. And really, we're looking at this idea of if you have a character like Tommy who has to make an impossible choice, it's this, you know, it's feeling like he's going into hell and that the only way out is through. So for this character who had this whole plan and he makes this mistake that totally derails his life, and then how do we kind of, you know, get into the mind of the audience of like, you know, how do you make this choice where you have to do this, but it's going to kill you every day that you do it.
Yeah.
And for us, it's, you know, like trying to get that balance of the Black comedy where there is the, you know, equal parts comedy and tragedy. So that was the struggle of getting that right in the script. And we knew we really wanted to get that down before we actually went into production. And we were even doing rewrites on the script for Josh in production. So
like couldn't say the words that were written well, so they had to do that.
So yeah, so we you know, we worked on it to the very end. We rewrote the ending in production, which is always fun.
Yeah. It did. And did you shoot on location in a real office?
We did. We had a location that we had 2 office spaces that we had access to. And thankfully we were able to like just take over that top floor of this building and work in both those spaces. So that was really great. We had it for the whole month, which was great.
That's great. Josh, I want to hear about your take on Tommy, who was kind of our moral compass through this whole story. What was your reaction when you saw the script about this part?
Well, I had heard about it from Wendy a couple years before, but I don't think for whatever reason, I didn't piece the two, that moment when she told me about it and then the script. And I was actually reading it for another role. And then, which I liked that role, but I couldn't help but identify very strongly with Tommy. And I also don't get a chance to play that role that often. So I hit her up and I'm like, hey, can I read for that instead? And then it hit me later that was the role that she was talking about a couple years before. I don't really know if I can put it really very articulately. That I like to do the right thing a lot, and it's a struggle sometimes. And that I've had an experience in life of like quite often, unfortunately, like what do I do? What do I do? I don't know. Should I do this or that? Should I do this or that? Should I do this or that? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So I just identify with that struggle of ambivalence. Unfortunately, I don't love that descriptor, but like that ambivalence can be just absolutely torturous. And also a guy who's trying to dig himself out of a place that he's just not happy in, and he's not thriving in. And I think that really spoke to me as well, because it's a tough spot to be in, and to know what to do about that, especially when so much seems stacked against you. So I loved this. I loved the struggle. And, yeah.
You gotta tough it out maybe and see some ugly sides of family law, but if you're at Jamba Juice, it's not really gonna make anyone's experience any better or worse, I guess. If you're in the trenches, at least
somebody really needs that juice,
Everyone needs that juice.
Everyone needs that juice.
That's right. Leslie, your character, oh my gosh. I mean, I felt like, did you just have like a migraine the entire time when you were performing this role? I mean, from like the get-go, you're like, oh, but I just love that, like, you could tell she had the best of intentions, and I felt like she was one of the good ones that cared about her clients, and she was really trying to do, right by everyone, but it just looked exhausting.
I mean, we had a lot of fun. I felt I did more laughing than crazy, frustrating yelling. No, I loved getting to play this character. I think I also, I would say, agree with Josh. I don't get to play the kind of crazy, angry, very, whirlwind of a character too often. I think it's a great role for a woman. It's nice to see a female character having that kind of energy in a script.
Absolutely.
So yeah, no, I had a great time. It was a lot of fun.
Wow. Yeah, when I've worked with Leslie and Josh before on other projects, and when we wrote Brandy's character, we were like, this is Leslie. Like, we knew that we wanted her to do it. And when I described the part to her, I'm like, she's basically just a tornado. She's a tornado all of the time. And of course, like Leslie just nailed it.
Who doesn't want to try that? You don't get to do that in real life.
Right. Well, one of the big takeaways, I mean, other than this struggle of what's the right thing to do in this kind of situation, is that I learned what flurple is, kind of.
Me too.
I mean, like, so, Mike, were you like the legal expert with your paralegal background? I mean, how did you have all of this?
I think expert is putting it really too strongly, but I was the legal voice.
Like flurple.
Flurple.
It doesn't even sound like a word. It has no meaning. The more you hear it, you're like,
it's like a word that was made for a television show.
Yeah, right, exactly. Might as well put it in.
I can confirm my wife is in insurance defense. She's a lawyer, but she watched this with me like early on in the editing process, and she she had to stop watching it because she was very like, this hits really close to home. Like, this feels very like unnecessarily accurate. So Mike, you should take that as a compliment, I think.
I think that definitely is a compliment. You don't want her to watch and say, this is just full of it. This is not real. These are not real words. That's great. Well, I want to hear actually about your process, John, because it's very about these characters. You're in one location the whole time. How did you approach it as the DP?
Wendy is great in the sense that she's got a really good understanding of what she wants a lot of the time, but she also likes to kind of play. And I see that with the way that she works with actors. And I think one of the challenges that we had on this was trying to make sure it had a unique visual style that also left room for the actors to improvise a lot, to kind of play in the space a little bit, to discover the space, and and Caitlin Creedon, our production designer, did a fantastic job dressing, like sometimes moving desks from one part of the office to the other and things like that. So like just working in, having free reign of an entire office space meant we could sometimes pre-light one area while we were shooting in another and vice versa. But from a standpoint of how we kind of figured out what that unique visual language was, one of the things we really referenced that Wendy and I got into was the show Homecoming on Amazon, which is the second season out now. I'm super excited. I haven't like dove into it yet, but the first season is such a fantastic visual language, like just weird compositions and lots of geometry and unusual like close-ups and wide angle lenses and things like that. And we kind of gravitated towards that as this way of putting Tommy as a character kind of like outside of himself a little bit, like this total fish out of water in this space. So we'd always push him to one side of the frame, or we'd always like give him a lot more headroom, or we'd try to make sure there were these kind of weird like geometric lines and stuff in the frame. We try to do a lot of that stuff, but it also has to kind of look like an office.
Yeah.
It has to look kind of ugly, like, and kind of like green fluorescent lighting and stuff. So there was a lot of a challenge of how do we make this look pretty but also not
right,
like
really.
And so that was, I think for me, was the fun of it, was trying to take trying to make this office space look like this natural kind of uninviting space that it is, but also try to make it kind of cinematic and fun and vibrant at the same time, and also leave room for like Josh and Leslie and the other actors to kind of just play around, which was a lot of fun for me, and a big learning experience for me as well as a cinematographer.
That's great. Now I see it. Now that you're talking about it, I completely see exactly what you just said, but I didn't realize it at the time, but I internalized it, I'm sure.
That's probably better. I think it's good for it to kind of be invisible, and you just sort of, you subliminally feel it, like you said, consciously experience it. So it's good.
Very well done. It's great.
Yeah, John and I sat down and really kind of looked at, what we wanted to do, what we're trying to do. We were really trying to develop a visual language for the piece that was different, but as John said, not so different that you couldn't relate to it, didn't feel like an office, but like, introducing characters that are sort of obscured when we first see them. So you see like a resume in front of Rebecca, you see Whit's shoes in front of him. So like these ideas of like, these reveals of each character, and then a perspective from behind each character's head, which we then use as a motif in the end. We sort of see the office from above people's heads and all of the offices. And then in the very last shot, before the camera flip, we bring the camera up behind Tommy's head, and then we have that perspective as well. So now he is part of them. He's part of that visual language, part of that space. So cool. These are all choices that, John is brilliant with this stuff. We talked about to try and make part of the language.
I was really stupid in suggesting this camera flip thing. That was like, I think we sort of like thought, well, like what's an interesting way we can visualize this sort of descent into hell kind of thing. Yeah. And so the first moment when he walks into the office, the camera literally like flips upside down. And I suggested that, and Wendy was like, that's a really cool idea, let's do that. And I was like, oh shit, I gotta figure out how to do this now. And there were like multiple times where we ran into that issue with just those two camera flips, where like those two shots alone took up probably like collectively a full day of filming, just because they were so technologically hard to figure out, like just the logistics of it.
And huge props to Josh, who had to deal with all of the technical things. So like with the first camera flip, he had to walk in, but the physical space, the camera was too low, so he had to actually like duck under the camera. But we're like, don't make it look like you're ducking. And he's like, great, thanks. Yeah, I'll try that. And it was great. You totally didn't. And then the very last shot was actually the very last shot of production.
Wow.
Camera flips. So we kind of planned it that way, but it's a huge emotional moment for Tommy, and we had to keep doing it over and over and over again to get it right. And Josh was just amazing the whole way through. We're like, okay, again. He's like, great.
Like, no, I'm not done. No.
It was like
I had no idea what was. I knew what was going on because I could see the camera. But I didn't know what you all were looking at. and I didn't know that you were fine with what I was doing, and so focused on the technical aspect of it. I just kept going with it, and
like, I'm messing up, man. I'm ruining this thing.
yeah, basically they were not looking at me after a certain point at all. But all I can think of, because I'm an actor and I think about myself all the time.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm doing terrible. What am I? And they're not even looking at me.
I remember Wendy talking about this because I was by the camera and so I wasn't by the monitor. But like there were several people around the monitor as that shot was going on, and I remember people talking about like they were doing like
they're all leaning,
turn with the camera as they were watching it to like, is it working? Is it working?
Oh no.
Yeah, it would have like 10 people around the monitor and everybody would lean at the same time and be like, ah. Yeah, it was funny.
So Ward, were you on set during the whole process, or did you come in later? Were you like putting together a little skeleton edit as you guys were going through, or how did your process go?
Yeah, so I was on set for most of it. There were a few days that I was not there for. So I was there to kind of mentor our student script supervisor. And then also I played a role in the data loading. So I would get the data from camera team and get that onto my rig. And I'd started creating proxies. So I had planned to do a little bit of the skeleton edit as we went, but it didn't really work out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been on set for a couple of Wendy's shoots, which it's been a lot of fun because Wendy will lean on me a little bit, I guess, for some reason. I don't know.
Because Ward's brilliant, and I gotta tell you, like, having your editor on set is the greatest thing ever.
This coverage and make sure we have that to.
Yes, I mean, so many times it'd be like, Ward, is this gonna work? And then like he would come in, and then be like, how do we do this? How do we do that? And it makes the post process just seamless. It's like the greatest luxury ever to have your editor on set and have their brain working the whole time with you and know it's gonna cut. And we had really no problems with our shots because we had our editor there to say, no, that's not going to work. Don't put the camera there.
And there were some really, from a coverage standpoint, there were a number of scenes that were multiple people talking, and you got to get close-ups and over the shoulders of every single person. And, are we flipping the line here, or are we able to get this ending button on the scene here? Just like, yeah, like having Ward there to kind of talk through all of that geometry with us was really crucial. But also, I think Wendy, like watching you work with the actors, and the actors would always do, something maybe completely different from take to take because of the way you were kind of giving them that freedom. Like having Ward there also, I think, was kind of cool to like see you guys interact on the performance level in the edit.
Yeah, absolutely. He kind of was there to kind of see what I was trying to get at, which really helped fast track the edit as well. So yeah.
It's really nice to be on set as an editor because usually you spend most of your time in a dark, empty, lonely place working. So it's really nice to be around people.
I'm sure.
Sounds so sad. They let me out of my box.
I love my job.
Good. Well, we don't have too much more time. I would talk to you guys all afternoon, but I just want to ask one final question as a takeaway. If you were Tommy, would you take the job?
Ooh. Who wants to go first?
I'll say yes. I'll totally say yes.
Oh, you would say yes, John.
Sorry, maybe that's like part of my unbridled optimism, but also like, I don't know, being a freelancer, I'm like, I'll take that job. Take that job all the time.
Yeah, I'd like to say no, but I think I'd be like, yeah, I have to. I gotta take it.
Mike, you took the job.
Well, answered.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I stayed working there. I mean, I saw the worst of it, and but even so, yeah. I mean, given Tommy's dilemma, yeah.
Leslie, would you do it? No.
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it'd be entertaining for like a month or so, and then I would probably get. my conscience would step in. I'd be like, hey, somebody's got to be hiring somewhere else. Maybe law is for me. Maybe I need to, I don't know.
You take the job, but you keep looking for work elsewhere while you're at the job.
Yeah, probably. I take the job for like a month, write a book, and then move on.
All right, Josh, what do you think?
I mean, given what I'm up, given what I'm up against, probably. However, I don't know that I would have the courage to do what Tommy is going to try to do from there on out, given what I think Tommy's going to try to do from there on out.
Okay.
He's going against. I mean, at the very end, it's I'm breaking the law every time I'm doing the exact thing that I don't want to be doing, but I can't help it because I'm not gonna just let these people flounder. Right. Which, I mean, pardon the language, takes a bit of balls to do that. I would like to think that I'm courageous enough to do that, but I don't know.
Yeah, you can say balls. It's okay.
Great, balls.
I mean, also, how many of us want to go up against Pat Swayze every day? We don't.
I mean, he's so good at being bad.
He really is. He's tremendous at being bad.
I'm assuming you would take it since you are the co-creator of the project.
I would take it, and I would take them down.
Yes. I love it.
That's what I would do.
Awesome. Well, I'm sorry to end it here. I had such a good time chatting with you guys. Thank you so much for sharing your project with us. Inferno, I can't wait to see more. I want to see more. Please support the project and keep us in the loop and let us know how everything's going.
We sure will. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thank you all. And thank you for watching the Q&A with Inferno.